In June 1969, the BBC broadcast a film that let roughly 350 million people around the world watch the Queen live an ordinary year. Within a decade, she had it locked away, and it was not shown again for half a century. The idea began inside the palace itself. William Heseltine, the Queen's press secretary at the time, working alongside television producer John Brabourne, Lord Mountbatten's son-in-law, believed the monarchy needed to look more human to a public that increasingly saw it as remote and old-fashioned. They proposed letting cameras follow the family for an entire year, not for a formal state occasion, but through ordinary days, working at desks, on picnics, in the car. The BBC and ITV agreed to produce the film jointly, an unusual arrangement for two rival broadcasters, and director Richard Costin, working from a script by writer Anthony J., who would later co-create the satirical sitcom Yes, Minister, was given access most filmmakers would never be offered. Over roughly 12 months, crews shot more than 40 hours of footage at Sandringham, Balmoral, Buckingham Palace and Windsor, aboard the royal yacht and the royal train, and on official visits to Chile, Brazil, Malta, and Cambridge. The results showed the Queen and Prince Philip meeting with a private secretary aboard the train, the family having lunch together, a barbecue at Balmoral, and a young Prince Edward being taken to a sweet shop and, in one scene, learning to read. None of it was scandalous by any later standard. There were no arguments caught on camera, no private confessions, nothing resembling the kind of material that would define royal television decades afterward. What made the footage unusual at the time was simply its ordinariness, the sight of a monarch behaving like anyone else's mother for 90 minutes at a stretch. Not everyone close to the family thought it was a good idea. The naturalist David Attenborough, a friend of the production team, reportedly warned Costin directly that he was, in his words, killing the monarchy by stripping away the distance that had always protected it. The concern he was describing had a name already, borrowed from a Victorian writer nobody involved in the project needed to look up. In 1867, the constitutional theorist Walter Bagehot had written that the institution's mystery was its life, and that daylight should never be let in upon its magic. A century later, the palace was proposing to do exactly that, deliberately, on television, to an audience larger than any monarch in history had ever addressed directly. It was not the first time the family had wrestled with that exact tension. 16 years earlier, in 1953, Winston Churchill had argued against allowing television cameras into Elizabeth's own coronation at all, worried that broadcasting a sacred ceremony would turn it into what he called a theatrical performance, rather than a moment of genuine reverence. The Queen, still in her 20s at the time, overruled him and allowed the cameras in anyway, and the coronation became one of the first mass television events in British history. Royal family, 16 years later, pushed that same logic much further, past a single ceremonial day and into the routine texture of daily life. When the film finally aired, narrated by Michael Flanders across two broadcasts on the 21st of June 1969, the worry about losing that mystery seemed, at least by the numbers, misplaced. It drew more than 38 million viewers in Britain alone, and the BBC's own later estimate put the worldwide audience at around 350 million, making it, by some measures, one of the most watched television broadcasts anywhere in the world up to that point. That same year, cameras also followed preparations for Prince Charles's investiture as Prince of Wales, timing that was no coincidence, since the film was partly designed to build public familiarity with him ahead of the ceremony. The reversal came more slowly than the broadcast had, and without any public announcement to match it. The film was shown a handful more times over the following years, before quietly disappearing from British television altogether by the late 1970s. Buckingham Palace never issued a detailed explanation for why. The account that has circulated since, through royal biographers and unnamed sources close to the family, is that the Queen came to feel the film had let the public get too close. Trading the institution's mystique for a familiarity she wasn't willing to extend permanently. She retained the copyright to the film personally, which meant no broadcaster, museum, or archive could show it again without her direct authorization, and for the next 5 decades, that authorization essentially never came. When the National Portrait Gallery mounted an exhibition on the Queen's public image, organizers were restricted to a single 90-second clip out of 110 minutes of original footage. Requests from academic archives, documentary makers, and journalists marking royal anniversaries were, by most accounts, turned down as a matter of routine, rather than case-by-case judgment. Treating the film less like a piece of broadcasting history and more like a mistake the family preferred the public simply forget had happened. For most of 2 generations, royal family existed mainly as something people had heard of rather than seen, a program famous largely for not being available. Netflix's series, The Crown, eventually dramatized the making of the film itself, in an episode built around the tension between Heseltine's television-friendly instincts and the older, more guarded generation of courtiers who never trusted the project from the start, giving millions of viewers a fictionalized version of a documentary, the real footage of which almost none of them had ever actually watched. That changed abruptly in January 2021, when an unknown user uploaded the full film to YouTube. It stayed up for a few days, watched by a few thousand people who, for the first time in most of their lives, could finally judge for themselves whether the 50-year secrecy had ever been warranted before a copyright claim, which the BBC did not dispute submitting, took it down. Buckingham Palace declined to comment on the record, as it generally had throughout the entire 5 decades the film spent locked away. Copies kept resurfacing on other channels and archive sites in the weeks and years that followed, each one removed in turn, in a pattern that has continued ever since, with the film periodically reappearing and disappearing again, depending on how closely anyone happened to be watching that week. By the time King Charles's own reign brought fresh scrutiny of royal transparency, commentators reaching for a shorthand to describe the family's instinct for privacy would return to Bagehot's original warning almost automatically. The same line about daylight and magic that had anticipated the entire episode more than a century before it happened applied now to a different generation, making the same calculation in reverse. Half a century after Elizabeth first agreed to let cameras inside her family's ordinary days, and just as long after she decided the experiment had gone far enough, the film she tried hardest to erase remains one of the most searched-for pieces of royal television ever made, precisely because so few people have ever been allowed to see it in full.